Tonight, we have Annenberg's first interview with the newly elected USG president and vice president. Find out what their priorities are for the USC community.
Tiger Woods' accident has brought attention to the dangers of the road where it happened. Plus, a doctor shares how his injuries could impact his career.
And the costume designer for Black Panther continues to inspire young filmmakers. Find out what honor she is about to receive.
Live from USC, you're watching Annenberg TV News.
Are accountable to you, to students, and I think that too means we need to best insert student voices and student advocacy into what USG does.
The new USG president and vice president say their priority is more inclusion in USG and campus activities. Good evening. I'm Annalise Tuscan reporting from Los Angeles.
And I'm Savannah Welch reporting from San Diego. Alexis Reyes and Lucy Warren are only the second all-female ticket to win the top student leadership spots.
Alexis, and we released that restructuring plan with big ideas for how to completely, reorganize how we operate. But to actually make that happen requires, a lot of changes to our bylaws, our constitution, et cetera. And so we need to do, a lot of meetings internally with all of our different committee chairs and senators to figure out, what's the best way we can really move forward with our plans as far as restructuring and advocacy go.
Lucy and I really want to change the way that we have done recruitment in the past, ensuring that we're reaching out to a lot of the different corners of campus that, historically haven't really been represented within USG.
I think all of our goals should be aimed at social justice and having the ethics and of diversity and inclusion in mind. Everything on our platform has been thought through an intersectional lens. And so I hope that we can our number one goal is to integrate DEI into everything we do.
The new USG leaders say their goals include prioritizing inclusion, breaking barriers, restructuring USG, and protecting Trojan physical and mental health. Reyes and Warren will be inaugurated later this spring, along with the new USG senators.
Tiger Woods underwent surgery last night to repair multiple bone breaks in his right fibula, tibia, ankle, and foot. Today, LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva said that Woods was, quote, not drunk and that the accident was purely an accident. Woods' long surgical procedure was at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. An expert in post-surgical rehab says there is little precedent for a sports comeback from a tibia-fibula fracture, but he doesn't rule out the possibility.
There's a chance for him to return, certainly. And he's not playing an impact sport or a contact sport. Typically with mechanics of golf, there's less torque on his right leg as a right-handed golfer. So if we're talking about picking a leg that has an injury, fortunately, it's the right one and not the left one. Going through that kind of psychosocial or psychological hurdle is probably going to be the more challenging one. Could he get all of his movement, range of motion back, all of his strength back? There is a high potential for that.
The Rancho Palos Verdes section of Hawthorne Boulevard where Tiger Woods crashed is a known problem area for traffic accidents. LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva told reporters that since January 2020, there have been 13 accidents on the windy road. We spoke with a Palos Verdes resident about that dangerous stretch of road.
I drive it at least a couple times a day, both up and down. Maybe 30 seconds from my house, it's the main road coming up and down the hill. It's a steep hill, pretty steep grade. They don't have a lot of those in LA, so I feel like that can be challenging for some people who aren't super used to it. Specifically coming down like he was, it's so steep that it has a gravel kind of like truck runaway lane that everybody seems to run into anyways, just not thinking it's a lane. But that's caused a lot of crashes in the past.
LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn released this statement about the Tiger Woods car crash.
A new vaccine is up for approval, distributed by Johnson & Johnson. A medical expert at UC San Diego says these shots are just as effective as other vaccines at stopping the spread of the virus.
Lots of people will start trying to compare between Moderna and Pfizer and J&J, and we just have to be mindful that these vaccines weren't compared head to head. They were tested at different times in different populations. So those efficacy rates just really can't be compared. What we do know is it worked really well to prevent people from getting severe COVID-19, and probably just as good as any other vaccine we have out there. And it's one shot, so pretty exciting.
The FDA says Johnson & Johnson's single-shot vaccine is safe for emergency use. The company has 4 million doses ready for shipment if the supply is authorized. The FDA Advisory Board meets Friday to determine whether the vaccines should be released to the public. LA grocery and pharmacy workers are one step closer to a boost in pay. The City Council voted today on what is being called the Hero Pay Measure. The vote was 14-1 in favor, but only a unanimous decision will make it official. Another meeting is scheduled for March 3rd. The measure would raise wages for workers in large grocery stores and pharmacies by $5 an hour. Now, the average wage is around $17.50 an hour. Add the hero pay, it would come out to about $22.50.
A lot of the workers definitely deserve it because they're taking no time off and are risking their lives pretty much every day at work. Since May, we've had really nothing to show for all our hard work when a lot of other places are rightfully shut down.
Southern California high school athletes are back on the field. Orange County students can play ball beginning this Friday, with LA County soon to follow. Emergency response experts weigh in.
We know that kids have really been suffering during the stay-at-home order while schools have been closed. For those sports that can be conducted outside, like baseball, soccer, we know that outside the transmission is minimal. It's really, really low. And particularly if you kind of wear masks and implement those public health interventions that we know are effective, then it drastically reduces your risk.
Public health officials cleared the way for sports in Orange and LA County. Those counties are below the threshold of 14 COVID cases per 100,000 residents. Athletes will be tested weekly in order to compete. Although the athletes are cleared to go back to their games, some schools have already canceled their fall seasons. He is widely considered the most significant Black architect of the 20th century. Paul Revere Williams graduated from USC more than 100 years ago, and tonight the School of Architecture joins the Getty Research Institute to discuss his legacy. The class of 1919 graduate became one of Hollywood's most sought-after architects. He built vacation homes for stars including Lucille Ball, Frank Sinatra, and Cary Grant. He succeeded despite the era of Jim Crow. For example, Williams toured building sites with his hands behind his back because he was concerned that white clients would refuse his handshake.
He clearly is the most, I think, important African-American architect of the 20th century in the United States. He was wildly successful and, by any standards, and this is in the age of segregation and Jim Crow. How he pulled it off is not entirely clear.
Historians say Williams learned to draw upside down so clients would not feel uncomfortable sitting next to a Black man. Tonight, his legacy is front and center.
As Black History Month wraps up, Oscar-winning costume designer Ruth E Carter will celebrate with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Devarick Turner has more on Carter's impact in design and fashion.
My son, it is your time.
The woman behind the incredible costumes in Marvel's superhero hit Black Panther was the first woman to win the Academy Award for Best Costume Design. Tomorrow, Ruth E Carter will be the first Black designer to receive a star on the Walk of Fame. Carter has long inspired this 2019 USC graduate and costume designer.
In the industry, she's had such a huge impact, particularly in Black cinema, like with all of her work with Spike Lee and like, if you look at her IMDb, it's crazy how much she's done.
Carter has a career spanning nearly 40 years. She first worked with Spike Lee in 1988 on the film School Days. They have collaborated on 14 films.
It's funny when it comes to costume designers and production people, because you can realize after 20 years that you've been watching their work for your entire life and didn't even realize it.
Carter's influence has even been woven into everyday fashion. Her collection with H&M debuted last year.
Point out, I'm wearing her shirt, her sweatshirt. Like, honestly, even just this piece to me describes how she inspires me, because like these are my colors, like black and red, my colors. We're seeing her influence in current fashion in terms of like how texture and color is integrated into this new futuristic wave.
Ruth's iconic designs and legacy will now forever be a part of Hollywood. As a professional designer and USC costume department faculty member, Terry Gordon wrote in an email for this story, "More than wardrobe, Ruth creates worlds for her actors and characters." For Annenberg Media, I am Dafari Turner.
The number of TV shows directed by women and people of color increased during the 2019-2020 season, according to a study released by the Directors Guild. From Los Angeles, I'm Mimi Geller with The Breakdown, a weekly segment where we try to provide more context about the stories students care about. The share of episodes directed by people of color hit 32% during the 2019-2020 TV season. That's up from 5 seasons ago, when only 16% of episodes were directed by people of color. I spoke with School of Dramatic Arts Assistant Professor Rodney Toe about the TV industry's efforts to improve representation. Why is that diversity important in the field?
The climate has now demanded that not only the world in front of the camera reflects the world at large, but also the world behind the camera. I think it's really important, and people are seeing that now. Also, because of that, there are a lot of mandates in place with a lot of networks and studios that they have to diversify. So yes, there's been a very conscious push towards accurate representation, and I'm really encouraged by it. That being said, there is still a lot to do.
Where do you envision the future of the TV and film industry going in terms of having more diverse people on set, whether that's actors, people on the lighting crew, directors, producers? Where do you envision the industry going?
I hope we no longer have to talk about it in the very near future, that it just becomes second nature. As somebody who's part of many disenfranchised groups, we are exhausted talking about it, right? We are exhausted being reached out to and talked to about diversity. And I'm happy to be here because I think it's important, but I think we'd love to be on the other side of things and not be asked about it anymore. It's a big burden for people of color and women and disenfranchised groups to carry.
Hello, sports fans. I'm Sydney Rocket with Annenberg Media Sports reporting from Long Beach. This week marks the last week of Black History Month. And for USC beach volleyball player Joy Dennis, this month means recognizing the excellence and accomplishments of Black athletes.
Joy Dennis over the top of the block.
Over the 5 years, I have been the only Black female athlete on the beach volleyball team.
Dennis is a graduate student from Cypress, California, beginning her 5th season with SC.
I am a huge minority, not only at the school, but also in the sport in general. Like, it's very rare that you will see a Black female playing beach volleyball at all.
When the Black Lives Matter movement ignited last summer, many of Dennis's teammates turned to her when they had a question. She took on the role as an educator, helping them understand the importance of the movement.
My life matters. Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Being among the 2% of beach volleyball players in the NCAA and the only Black woman on her team, Black History Month means a lot to her.
I get excited about it personally because I'm like in a minority sport. I'm like, this is my month. I'm so excited. But I also think that it's a great opportunity because sometimes it takes tragedy for people to educate themselves. But this month, it doesn't take tragedy.
She hopes to inspire younger girls who look like her to step out of the norm and play beach volleyball. Dennis kicks off her final USC volleyball season tomorrow versus Pepperdine University.
Hi, I'm Lachelle Smith reporting from Los Angeles. USC's women's basketball is putting their 2-loss weekend behind them and setting their eyes on their final season game against number 10 UCLA this Friday. As of today, the women of Troy have dropped in the Pac-12 standings from 5th to 7th. With an 8-9 conference record, the Trojans face a tough battle against the Bruins, who are 3rd in the standings with only 4 losses in conference play. In the last crosstown battle, the women of Troy suffered a 19-point loss at the Galen Center in December, making the all-time head-to-head record tied at 50 wins apiece. With the Pac-12 tournament starting next week, sophomore guard Angel Jackson plans to help improve the team's energy to reach their goal.
We're very excited to go to postseason. That's been one of our goals even before the season even started. Back in quarantine, we just know we have to work harder. We're getting it together, but we always know there's more room to improve.
And I'm joined back by my co-anchor, Sydney Rocket. Sydney, men's basketball has a great weekend coming for them. They're playing Utah and Colorado this weekend. What do you think this team needs to do to continue their momentum in the season?
You know what? They just have to take it game by game, because one loss could put them right back in second place. So just keep it game by game and not looking too much ahead in the future.
And I definitely agree with you. As long as they keep the strong play that they've been having, I think it'll be a great season for them. Now back to news.
Your local Postal Service vehicles are getting a revved up revamp, and installing air conditioning is just the first step. A military vehicle production company will manufacture the new fleet, which is half electric vehicles. The goal is to eventually reconfigure all of them to zero-emission systems. Oshkosh Defense will assemble 50,000 to 165,000 new postal vehicles over the next decade. They will receive $482 million up front for design, testing, retooling, and building their factory. This rollout was sparked by President Biden's initiative to replace all federal government vehicles with clean electric ones made in America. That's it for Annenberg TV News. Thanks so much for watching.
From everyone at Annenberg Media, have a great night.